Taichi was a negative Riz loser who got friend-zoned by his childhood friend. However, when he gets summoned to a fantasy world with her, he becomes the most powerful magician but uses his power to Riz her up and clap anyone he wants. It all started one morning when Taichi was testing his Riz on Rin on the way to school when a strange leaf flew past him and called his name. Just then, a dumb student speeding on a bicycle was about to hit Rin, causing Taichi to stop the poorly written isekai attempt. Meanwhile, some knights were with a princess who was activating a magic circle until a masked assassin tried to stop them. The assassin deactivated the magic circle and was about to unalive the princess before another knight stopped him. At the same time, a magic circle appeared around Taichi and Rin, causing him to realize that the scenario felt like a cutscene from Final Fantasy. So he told Rin to get out of the magic circle in an attempt to be a bold hero and get isekai'd alone. However, Rin came rushing back out of concern for him, and when she grabbed his arm, they both vanished from the face of the earth. Taichi woke up in a deserted land and instantly rushed to check on Rin, who was still snoozing, so he woke her up. After realizing they were somewhere far from home, they tried to navigate the area together. Taichi was beginning to smell the elephant in the room. He brought up the magic circle they encountered and said that it wasn't made from CGI, but claimed that it emitted a strange power which he felt. Rin wasn't willing to hear his nerd fantasy nonsense, so she told him to shut up when he started implying that they could be in a fantasy world and claimed it wasn't possible until a strange horse beast that looked like a special grade curse from Jujutsu Kaisen began to attack them. After dodging several of the horse monster's attacks, Taichi realized that it was trying to make them dinner, so he asked Rin to run and hide somewhere while he distracted it as bait. She argued, saying that he'd die if they followed his plan, but Taichi motivated her to do it by saying that he was desperate to prove he had some Gigachad aura by taking on the beast alone. He rushed towards the beast and threw a rock at it, but his arm strength was like wet spaghetti. Out of desperation, he decided to take a page out of Isagi's playbook and rage baited the monster using insults, causing it to charge at him with intent of making roast beef out of his head until it was taken down by the magical slash attack of an adventurer in the area. The adventurer praised Taichi for his taunts at the monster and started squaring off against it until another adventurer finished it off with a magical arrow. Another member of the party named Majula showed up and told them about how valuable the obsidian horses were before using her flame magic to barbecue the monster they faced. Despite being the most ignorant person in this new world, Rin decided that he and Rin were going to find a way to survive this new world no matter what. While camping that night, they talked about a nearby town named Espire. Rin asked the adventurers to take them there, and they agreed without any hesitation. Barada noticed that Rin was acting like someone stepped on her puppy, so he told Taichi to go make up with her before their journey the next day. Taichi met up with her in a secluded spot and asked why she was angry, and she replied by telling him never to try to sacrifice himself for her again. She broke into tears as she went further to say he shouldn't leave her alone in the world, so Taichi apologized and promised that he wouldn't leave her alone ever again. The next morning, they got to Aspire, where the adventurers gave them directions to the Adventurers Guild. Raquelta asked if they were sure they wanted to become adventurers, while pointing out how dangerous it was, but Taichi said they had to do so in order to earn some money. After they thanked the adventurers for all their help, Barada gave them some cash as a parting gift and said they could stop by their base if they ever needed any help. Taichi and Rin went into the guild hall where the receptionist said they had to participate in a magic aptitude test because magic was essential to becoming an adventurer. She said that all they needed to do was to touch a magic crystal she was holding, and when Rin gave it a try, some lights briefly appeared in the crystal, which made the receptionist ask who they were in a shocked way. When Taichi touched the crystal, it shattered, causing the receptionist to step out for a bit, which made them think they did something wrong. She went back with the guild master named Gerard, who informed them that they couldn't be registered as adventurers at the moment, before telling his associate named Mura to take them to a place where they'd both be given some advice which they needed. Shortly after, Mura took them to a house where they met a lady who was dressed like a runaway stripper named Lemia. After hearing what happened at the guild hall, Lemia gave them a special device which she made for measuring magic strength and magic capacity. When they used the device, Lemia noticed how absurd their numbers were and proposed that they become her apprentice from that day forward. Lemia told Taichi that his magic capacity was 120,000, while his magic strength was 40,000, and Rin had a magic capacity of 37,000 with a magic strength of 5,000. These values were astounding because normally, humans with a capacity over 10,000 and strength over 2,000 became knights or royal mages. Even Lemia, who was the top mage in the Elistane magic kingdom, only had a magic capacity of 43,000 and a magic strength of 6,000. She informed them that Mura had a magic capacity of 35,000 with a magic strength of 3,800 and revealed that the reason she wanted the isekai duo to be her apprentices was because they possessed incredible power which they had no idea how to use. Mura added that they could destroy themselves if they didn't learn how to properly use their magic power. So Taichi asked what would happen if they did train under Lemia. Lemia said they'd become that world's equivalent of Goku and Vegeta, and added that Taichi would be able to wage wars on entire countries all by himself since nobody could touch him. She flaunted her huge melons in his face while telling him that he would have all the money and women he wanted if he became king, and Rin stopped him from folding by covering his eyes. The four of them were having some breakfast together outside the house when Mura explained that magic spells are techniques that could be used by providing spirits with magic power. Rin asked if it was possible to activate spells without the help of spirits, and Lemia confirmed that it wasn't, before revealing that there were 4 types of spirits and magic attributes, which were wind, fire, water, and earth. Rin figured out that the kind of magic spell that could be cast depends on the kind of spirit you feed your magic power to. So Lemia called her a quick learner and trolled Taichi for having less IQ than a typical One Piece fan. She revealed that spirits were the ones who chose mages, not the other way around, and explained that most mages who were called single magicians could only use one attribute of magic, except in rare cases like Mura, who was a dual magician that could use both fire and earth magic. Lemia revealed that she was a triple magician who was capable of using fire magic, wind magic, and water magic before dropping a bombshell, which was the revelation that Rin could use all 4 types of magic. She explained that Rin was an extremely rare kind of magician called a quad magician, so Taichi anxiously asked what kind of magician he was. Lemia said she had no idea what kind of magic he possessed because he was a sorcerer and not a mage, which meant that he used a unique form of magic called sorcery. Rin asked how it was different from regular magic, so Mura explained that sorcery didn't need chance to borrow power from spirits because they were capable of using the spirits themselves to battle. Lemia said in order to do that, the sorcerer needed to forge pacts with the spirit he commands in order to form a powerful bond which would grant the user a level of power that was beyond anything a mage could wield. When Taichi asked what his magic attribute was, Lemia said she couldn't tell because some unique magicians didn't form pacts with spirits, but rather used ancient sorcery such as light manipulation, dark magic, and space-time manipulation. During their training session, Lemia materialized her magic power in a fist and destroyed a tree using a Detroit Smash, but Taichi couldn't replicate her action despite all of his efforts. Lemia said he needed to master it on that day because magic power meant nothing if he couldn't materialize it. On another part of their training grounds, Mura created some flames and explained to Rin that she had to imagine the spell she wanted to create before chanting it to the spirits, and Rin easily pulled it off on her first try. After a little girl talk between the two of them, Rin managed to manifest blue flames by imagining the flames of a gas cooker, and Rin was stunned because such a spell wasn't in any grimoire. During dinner that night, Lemia told Taichi that they'd focus on his left glowing hand the next day and explained that he needed to enhance his physical attributes using his magic power rather than one that casts spells. A while later, Mura met up with Lemia on the outside and asked her what she intended to do about their current situation. Lemia brought up the fact that the city was getting very dangerous and decided that they needed to train the isekai duo as much as they could within 3 weeks so they could at least stand on their own as adventurers. A few days later, Taichi faced off against a wolf monster named a Fenwolf and enhanced his right fist with magic power that allowed him to take it down with a single blow before finishing it off with a sword. Rin tore up the battlefield on her end by flexing her overpowered magic on some horned rabbits, and afterwards, Taichi met up with her to reveal that he'd defeated 10 Fenwolves. Lemia was pleased with their progression, especially with Rin, who Mura said was already developing her own unique spells, but the two of them got alarmed when an obsidian horse came by. Unlike last time, Rin and Taichi weren't scared at all, and it took them seconds to turn the horse monster into barbecue, which they feasted on that evening, while Lemia congratulated them for passing the exam. Lemia ruined the celebratory mood by revealing that she and Mura would be leaving for Aspire the next day and advising them to become adventurers. She got in a more serious tone as she revealed that Rin and Taichi were the lost ones who were sent from another world due to a summoning spell, and Taichi was surprised that she already knew their secret. When Rin asked who summoned them there, Lemia said they needed to find the person and asked them, but brought up the fact that it would probably be one of the rare overpowered sorcerers who could manipulate space-time. 2 weeks later, Taichi woke up after having a dream about the mysterious voice he'd been hearing and thought about how he and Rin returned to Aspire after leaving Lamia's place in order to get registered as adventurers. They now spent their days as E-rank adventurers doing little tasks to earn a buck, and living in the fantasy world got easier for them the more they got used to it. A while later, Rin read a book which informed her that the Elistane Magic Kingdom, which lies in the north of the Western continent, possessed the world's most advanced magic and had a population of over 20 million, with over 80% of that population being magic users. Taichi joined her at the table and pointed out a drawing on the book which showed how far Aspire was from the royal capital named Wenifix. They were interrupted when the barmaid named Armida brought their breakfast as well as a letter from the guild which turned out to be a summon. When they got to the guild, Taichi asked what was so important that they had to send them a summon, so the receptionist gave him a mission brief which said they had to observe the customers that entered a particular bar in the slums. Gerard added that they'd been getting reports that goods which were stolen from shops and wagons were being smuggled into the city through the slums, and the receptionist added that Taichi and Rin needed to find the culprit as well as other details of this crime. Taichi brought up the fact that it was a D-rank quest, so she explained that according to regulations, it was possible for a party to accept a mission that was a rank above their level. Rin noticed that the quest paper had 2 X's written on it, which meant that the mission had already been failed twice, and Gerard revealed that if it were failed a 3rd time, the guild would have no other option but to lend the services of C-rank adventurers for a much higher pay. Taichi called him a greedy scumbag for turning to them, so Gerard explained that he did so because of all the great things Lemia told him about their abilities and sweetened up the deal by promising to promote them to D-rank if they complete the mission. On their way home, Taichi wondered why Lemia told him not to use his physical enhancement ability in situations that weren't combat, as well as to always keep it below level 30, and Rin had to explain how displaying superhuman strength would draw too much attention. Rin spotted a special fruit named Melilla, which she rushed to buy, but the storekeeper crushed her hopes by telling her that it was valued at a silver for 3 pieces, which Taichi said was about 10,000 yen. Rin claimed that it was about half that price the previous week, so the merchant explained that they were experiencing a shortage of Melilla fruit. When Taichi explained that Melillas were a staple fruit in their town, the merchant revealed that there had been a sudden drop in the number of wagons delivering food to the town and told them about some rumors which had been circulating which said that monsters were attacking the delivery wagons. The man added that it wasn't only Melilla being affected, but also most other goods in the market, and the isekai duo ended up getting some Melilla fruits from him. They were eating the fruits at a particular street corner when Rin said she believed the rumors about the monsters to be true, and Taichi felt confident that they could complete the quest despite the fact that the enemy they were dealing with had sent D-rank adventurers packing twice. That evening, they walked into a bar where Taichi brought up rumors of how he could get some goods that weren't circulating the market at that very spot. The bartender tried to act clueless, so the duo told him they were planning on opening a fraudulent business of their own with those products and brought out a pile of cash which made everyone around jump out of their seats. The bartender still didn't take the bait, but instead, the thugs around crowded them to steal their loot, but ended up getting trashed by the isekai duo. When they questioned them, the thugs revealed that they were there to meet an anonymous man who promised them a good job, and the attack had already taken place by the time they got to the meeting spot. Taichi asked where they took the goods, so they revealed that they only skimmed off the top and took it to the entrance of the city. The bartender interrupted them by revealing that the trade of smuggled goods was a regular thing at that bar and told them not to pry into things they shouldn't before asking them to leave. On their way back, they were ambushed by 3 female assassins, but it only took Taichi and Rin seconds to take down 2 of them. Before they could attack the boss, one of the fallen assassins used a smoke bomb to make his escape. They noticed that the assassins were actually trying to end them and not just scare them off, so Taichi decided to take the unconscious one back to the guild for questioning. When the assassin woke up, she noticed that she was tied up in a locked room, and Gerard told her through the hole in the door that it was Taichi that decided to spare her life. He advised her to think about what to do with this second chance she'd been given, and the assassin wondered why they chose to spare her despite her attempts to unalive them. The next day, Rin and Taichi met up with Miura, who congratulated them on their promotion to D rank before discussing the recent troubling events that have been going on in town. Miura then offered to solve the problem of the Melilla fruit and followed up by asking to form a party with them, which they agreed to. They began their journey to the northern forest, where she heard word of a particularly strong magic user guarding some thieves that were raiding that area and causing price hikes. When they got to the area, the farmers in charge named McGill and Leith introduced themselves and offered to show them around the Melilla fields. When the third farmer named Kasim shook Tai Kai's hand, he got a weird feeling. They were patrolling the Melilla fields that evening when they were ambushed by a large ogre and some orcs. Taichi decided to handle the ogre, while Mura handled the orcs and Rin handled defense. It only took seconds for Mura to slice the monsters apart like bacon, and Taichi pulled a Saitama by taking down the gigantic ogre with one brutal punch. That evening, Taichi and the girls had a strategy meeting where they discussed their suspicions about the events and decided to wait for their enemies to react before making a move. Meanwhile, a mysterious sorcerer unalived some monsters in the area and absorbed their souls before swearing to finish off Taichi and the others soon. The assassin was in her room recalling the events of the battle against Taichi, and she realized that he could have easily one-shot her in the battle with his overwhelming strength. Yet he chose to nerf himself and riz her up by apologizing to her mid-battle. Just then, Gerard walked into the room and asked if she'd figured out what she wanted to do with her life, so she replied yes. Back at the Melilla farm, Taichi and the gang were patrolling in the morning when they spotted some footsteps in the area, as well as a burnt-out campfire, which indicated that some intruders had camped in the farm the previous night. Thanks to her detection magic, Rin found out that the intruders were their humans who were still in the area, so the gang caught them red-handed trying to steal some of the fruits. Seeing that their mage bodyguard wasn't with them at the moment, Taichi and the girls marched towards them confidently when they drew arms against them and asked them to surrender. The thieves tried to resist, but it didn't take long before they were wrapped up like Thanksgiving turkeys, and they started lamenting about how the overpowered female mage, who usually protected them, randomly decided to bail on them. When McGill took the crooks away, Kasim shook hands with Taichi once again, but this time Taichi called him out for having weirdly soft hands despite being a man who works on a farm. Kasim tried to deny his suspicion by reminding them that he was just the overseer. But the girls doubled down on the accusations by bringing up the fact that he knew about the ogres and orcs despite the fact that those creatures were unknown to people who weren't adventurers or from the north. Taichi asked Kasim who he was, so he started laughing maniacally as he revealed that he was the one who sent the ogres and orcs to raid the farm, and also the one who told the guild about the Melilla incident despite the fact that he was the one who convinced the thugs to steal them in the first place. When they asked why, he said it was to draw the three of them out in order to prove their abilities, and then started trash-talking Taichi until a strange lady named Grammy, who was wearing an invisibility cloak, joined the party. Grammy offered to take on the girls while Kasim took on Taichi, and it took only minutes before the entire scene became a battlefield. Grammy dodged an explosion attack from Rin and clashed swords intensely with Mura, who asked why she didn't unalive them while she was hidden in the cloak. She replied that she had no interest in petty assassinations, which made Mura realize that she was dealing with a battle-obsessed lunatic. Mura held her off, allowing Rin to fire a flame attack at her, but Grammy countered by using a wind magic spell to counter her attack. Rin decided to go aura for aura by casting her own wind magic spell, which came in the form of a tornado, which would buy Mura some time to reapply her physical enhancement. When Grammy sliced through the tornado, she was stunned to see that Rin had already prepared a buffet for her in the form of a mixture of earth and water spells. At the same time, Taichi asked Kasim if he intended to face him barehanded, so Kasim opened a dark portal which brought out one of the ice beasts from Asgard, which he called his frost elemental, to fight Taichi. Taichi tried to punch it, but his attacks phased right through it, and Kasim explained that physical attacks wouldn't work on it because it didn't have a physical body. However, the frost elemental itself was capable of landing attacks on him, so Kasim asked what he'd do next since he had no way of fighting against it. Meanwhile, all of Rin's attacks were being blocked by Grammy, so a fully powered-up Mura ran in to clash swords with her once again. Rin got baited by Grammy into firing an attack in the direction of Mura, which she managed to dispel in time, but unfortunately that allowed Grammy to land a critical hit on Mura before charging at Rin with her sword. Taichi was still having problems landing an attack on the frost beast, and the problems got even worse when it started firing ranged ice attacks at him, so he asked Kasim why he went this far just to get to them. However, Kasim couldn't care less about the words of a loser as he fed some ominous aura to the frost beast, which transformed it into an even more terrifying form which he called a red elemental. The red elemental daily managed to push Taichi back, and the young hero realized that it only took one super fast attack from this beast to have him coughing up some blood. Kasim revealed that the reason he drew all of them out there was because he wanted Tai Kai's power and planned to use the girls as hostages by making them play toys for weird men to make him comply. Grammy was standing over the girls after flooring them, but the girls got back up and decided to switch to a more basic tactic than the one they'd been using. Mura charged at Grammy and clashed swords intensely with her until Grammy got distracted by the sight of Rin flying towards her with a magic sword. Grammy tried to jump away, but got kicked in the gut by Mura, which created an opening for Rin to stab her with a sword made of lightning. The lunatic refused to back down, so Rin created a tornado using dust particles, which she turned into an explosive spell by feeding it with flame magic, and Mura landed the final blow, which took her down. When Grammy woke up, she tried to act tough by claiming that she was looking forward to dancing with them again, but they were interrupted when Kasim appeared and showed the girls how badly Tai Chi had been clapped by his red elemental. The girls begged on Tai Kai's behalf, so he tried to blackmail them by having them sew whatever sus demands he cooks up. Tai Chi watched in agony as he went towards the girls, and he thought about how much he hated himself for being a worthless loser until he was approached by a spirit in his mind who asked if he wanted power. Tai Chi said he did, so she agreed to lend him some power, but informed him that it would be an extremely painful process because she was breaking some rules to get it done. He remained unfazed by her warnings as he demanded the power, and the spirit introduced herself as a wind spirit named Ariel. When Tai Chi woke up, he was overflowing with aura, and after tanking an attack from the red elemental, he destroyed it with a single blast of wind, causing Kasim and Grammy to run away. Tai Chi tried to chase after them, but his body started hurting, so he only managed to gather enough willpower to take one of Kasim's arms off as they escaped. On their way out, Kasim and Grammy discussed how inhuman Tai Kai's powers were, and the girls did their best to tend to him while he was unconscious. Several days later, Tai Chi woke up in a room at Lemia's place, and when she came to check on him, his stomach made noises worse than your fave's new track, so she fed him a feast before revealing to him that his magic power depleted, which caused him to enter a coma. She revealed that he's been asleep for an entire week because his body needed time to replenish the exhausted mana from scratch, and that Rin and Mura brought him to her out of fear that he may have been unalived. He thanked Lemia for her help and revealed everything that happened in the northern forest to her, so she deduced that it was caused by something called a Crimson Pact, which was a cruel forbidden magic. He told her about how Ariel showed up in his mind to help him during his time of desperation, and Lemia lost her mind when she heard Ariel's name. She brought up their earlier discussion where she told him she had no idea what attribute his sorcery was and said she'd now realized that he was a summoner. Elsewhere, Kasim reported the incident to his boss, who responded by planting an ominous magic spell in Grammy, which he claimed would make her more submissive to Kasim during their next mission. Meanwhile, Tai Chi was having a drink in town, and he couldn't get the words of Lemia out of his head. She explained to him that a summoner was similar to a shaman because they had the ability to forge pacts with specific spirits, which allowed them to use stronger magic based on their bonds with them. She specified that the difference between a shaman and a summoner lies in the person's ability to hear and see the spirit, adding that spirits were higher-level beings that were above even dragons, which was why they're invisible to humans. She said he was a summoner because he could hear the spirit, but also because the spirit activated their power on his behalf at its full force. Tai Chi felt it was cheating, and his brainstorming was interrupted when Almeida came by to check on him. He asked about Rin and Mura, and she said she had no idea when they'd be back, so he decided to go outside and look for them. On the way, he saw some thugs pestering a girl, so he did what every simp would do, which was to tell them to cut it out. However, things escalated quickly when the girl suddenly got cozy with him and flaunted milk factories as she said she was going to give him some special services all night. One of the thugs tried to punch him, but Tai Chi wasn't about to lose aura points after successfully rizzing up a random baddie, so he kicked the idiot to the ground and sent them packing. When she thanked Tai Chi for saving her, he pointed out how easily she slipped away from the thug's grasp as evidence that she could have easily handled the situation herself. She claimed that they'd met before and described their past meeting in a sus way before revealing herself to be Anastasia, the former assassin that he spared. She revealed that she'd joined the guild and was now doing some undercover work for the case of the stolen goods, so he joined her as they took out the guards of a suspicious manner. They got to a room where they knocked out the guard and found a piece of paper which the contents made Tai Kai's jaw drop to the floor. At the moment, Mura and Rin were strolling around town while eating some snacks when they were attacked by an assassin. The assassin dodged and blocked their attacks until Rin cooked up a massive wind tornado to end the fight, which she ended up dispelling when she noticed a flame attack coming their way. When they blocked the attack, Grammy showed up and punched Mura in the gut before running away with her unconscious body. Rin tried to chase after her, but the assassins held her back long enough for Grammy to get far with Mura. Taichi and Anastasia went into an underground tunnel which, according to the piece of paper they found, had a bunch of goblins enhanced by crimson packs hiding out in them. When they got to a strange door, Taichi tried to punch it open after noticing a weird smell, but Anastasia stopped him and picked the lock with a needle instead. Taichi said he had mixed feelings about the guild sending Anastasia to do espionage jobs because he wanted her to move on and live a normal life after their battle, so she cheerfully told him to call her Anna. At the same time, Rin dodged all the flame attacks from the assassins before destroying them using a powerful wind spell. Grammy came back and told her that Mura was in a building nearby before explaining that she was forced into doing the mission and didn't want her or Mura to die since they were her prey. She revealed that her employer planned to use the Crimson Pact Okemura and explained that it was similar to the red monster that faced Taichi during their fight, so Rin rushed away to save her. She arrived at the building where Mura was tied up above a giant magic circle and froze all the assassins in the area using ice magic before deactivating the magic circle using earth magic. She cut down Mura's chains and apologized for letting her guard down, but unfortunately their sweet moment was interrupted when Kasim and the Mastermind showed up. The Mastermind told him that an army of 3,000 monsters would attack the town soon and claimed that they'd destroy everything previous to them. Rin got worried about Taichi, so Kasim told her that he wouldn't be coming because he was already following out the plans which they'd laid out for him before walking away with his master. Kasim and his boss were walking around the city and the boss asked Kasim how many monsters he'd prepared for them, so he replied that there were 500 monsters waiting to take on Taichi underground while 200 were above the surface. He asked his boss if he was sure about things, and his boss replied that he was confident because 90% of his plans always came to fruition. Meanwhile, a huge stone golem attacked Anna, but Taichi intercepted its punch before it landed and assured her that she wouldn't die so long as he was around. He enhanced his fists and proceeded to pummel the monster until it was nothing but a pile of rocks. He was shocked about the fact that the monster didn't have a core like regular golems, but their celebrations didn't last for long because two of Kasim's associates named Milo and Milo came by with a horde of goblins that were in some weird eggs. At the same time, Mura and Rin informed Gerard about what was going on and said that the way the Mastermind spoke gave them the impression that his goal was to attack the city and not demand anything as a form of negotiation. Gerard told the receptionist named Marie to summon all the adventurers in Aspire and contact the City Watch as well. He was feeling down about the fact that Taichi wasn't around to aid them in the fight, but the girls assured him that they'd fight with all they had to protect the town, and Lemia made a surprise appearance as well as she offered to join the fight as well. Meanwhile, Taichi asked Milo and Milo if they were the ones responsible for all the goblin eggs, and they confirmed his suspicions to be true before revealing that they also created the goblin monsters he faced. He asked what they planned to do, so they revealed that they planned to awaken the goblins and release them into the city, and said the goblins had orders to aggressively dance with the women in the city until they break, as well as to unalive the men and children. He asked if they'd be in trouble in that scenario, so they showed him a crystal ball which they possessed that allowed them to issue commands to the goblins, and proceeded to demonstrate its power by using it to awaken the goblins from their slumber. At first glance, Taichi and Anna immediately knew that the goblins were no regular goblins, as they'd been enhanced with Crimson Pact magic, which made them red in color. Taichi told Anna to wait by the door and assured her that he'd protect her before taking a couple of the goblins out using a slash attack. He took down even more goblins and worried that he might bring the entire room down if he enhanced himself even further, but he noticed that Milo and Milo were now being attacked by goblins because the dumb twins dropped their crystal ball. It got to a point where they were cornered by a goblin, so Taichi saved them and read them the riot act for being clumsy idiots before asking them how many goblins they were. The twins informed him that there were multiple rooms like that one in the city, and he managed to get them out of harm's way before charging at the goblins once again. Back at the guild hall, Lemia informed the rest of the squad that there were about 3,000 monsters approaching, which comprised of fenwolves, ogres, and orcs, and Gerard said the city forces had 150 adventurers above D rank and 30 men from the City Watch. Lemia came up with a plan which was to open fire with a tactical grade magic spell in order to take down the weaklings, and revealed that one of those spells would shave away most of her magic power. Rin came up with a counter idea, which was to combine water, earth, and fire magic to create a huge explosion that would wipe out all the monsters on the front lines, and asked for permission to move ahead with it. After gaining their approval, she stood on the city wall where Lemia remembered how well she explained the concept of bombs which she planned to use in her magic spell and felt happy about the fact that Rin was such an overpowered apprentice. When the monsters drew closer to the city gate, Rin fired a ball of magic to a particular spot where the monsters were gathered, which opened a large hole in the ground that swallowed them up. She followed up by filling up the hole with water magic and creating a fireball above it which created molten metal which she placed in the puddle of water. The metal overheated from within, causing a massive explosion that took most of the monsters out, so Lemia and Mura praised her for starting their counterattack in such an epic way. By the orders of Gerard, the adventurers in the city rushed outside the city and started destroying the monsters that remained one by one. The mastermind, who watched from a high ground, told Kasim that he was impressed by Rin's powers and said that the fun was only about to begin. After several hours of battling the monsters, Lemia and the girls were about to end the war when they got word about 200 Crimson-packed monsters that were approaching the battlefield. Just when Gerard was about to give up, Taichi arrived with Anna and the twins and asked to join the battle. Lemia, Rin and Mura were approached by some more monsters which Lemia easily disposed of before asking the two of them to hold off the battlefield for 30 seconds so she could activate a huge spell that would change the tide of the battle. While Lemia chanted, Rin destroyed a bunch of magical beasts using a magic lightning sword, and eventually Lemia activated a massive wind attack that destroyed all the monsters in the area. Taichi felt the vibration from Lemia's attack, so he promised Anna that he'd be back before rushing out to join his companions. The girls were now cornered by 3 humongous orcs, which survived their attacks, so they fired their biggest hits at them. Lemia and Mura managed to destroy their targets, but the orc which Rin attacked ended up surviving her spell and now had her cornered. Before the monster could land the finishing blow, Taichi showed up and grabbed its arm. Taichi apologized for coming late and explained to Lemia that he had to fight some goblins underground before telling her to watch the girls. He enhanced his entire body and flashed fists with the giant ogre. The ogre didn't budge, so he wrestled it to the ground and took it out with the nastiest punch imaginable, which wowed the girls. When he met up with the girls, Mura asked what his enhancement level was when he fought the ogre, and Taichi said he boosted himself up to level 100 in order to surpass the beast's strength. He noticed some monsters approaching them and asked if they could continue fighting, but Lemia said they were already spent and could only manage to keep the status quo for the meantime. She noticed that Milo and Milo were clinging to him and asked who they were. So Taichi revealed that they were talented earth magicians who recently joined their side. He asked Lemia and the girls to watch his back while he took on 2 gigantic ogres that reawakened, and the mastermind, who watched from above, said it was impressive that they managed to slay so many monsters in a single night. He told Kasim that it wasn't a problem though because they still had something massive in their plans and claimed that their boss had already visualized every possibility imaginable so they would come out on top. Gerard was having a cup of coffee when a guard informed him that the majority of the red monsters were reduced to cannon fodder by Lemia apart from the 3 humongous orcs, which were now engaged in combat against Taichi. Anna got worried after hearing that Taichi was engaged in combat against 3 titans, but she calmed down when some injured people she tended to thanked her for her help. She said she believed in Taichi since he had faith in her, and right as she was about to leave the room, a mysterious hooded figure whispered some words to her that put her brain on autopilot. The adventurers fought intensely on the battlefield, slaying as many monsters as possible, and advised the girls not to waste their shots because they were meant to guard Tai Kai's back. Taichi delivered an uppercut to one of the Titan orcs before dodging an attack from the second one and smashing it to the ground. He started getting exhausted due to the effects of the level 100 boost he was on, but that didn't stop him from destroying one of the orcs. Just then, a mysterious monster appeared from underground and tried to attack Taichi, but he jumped away in time to avoid them. Everyone around watched in terror as the monster revealed itself to be a twin-headed dragon, and Kasim's master said it was the final piece on his board which would allow him to properly gauge Tai Kai's powers. Taichi asked the girls if it was the commotion that woke the dragon from its sleep, but Lemia said they barely left their nests and added that to dragons, a war above ground was nothing but the flutter of an insect's wings which wasn't worth their attention. They tried to stop Taichi from taking on the legendary beast on his own, but Taichi knew it was the perfect time to aura farm, so he told the girls to evacuate everyone back to the capital while he fights it. Instead of going with the others, Rin decided to fight alongside Taichi, so Mura and Lemia wished them luck as they went back to help with the evacuations. Taichi advised Rin to stay out of the battle because there was a chance that he could sacrifice himself if the battle went haywire and the monster targeted her. Rin agreed, so Tai Chi thanked her before rushing forward to meet the beast. He called out to Ariel, but she didn't respond, so he felt that their earlier encounter was only a fluke. He enhanced himself up to 100 again and tried to punch the dragon, but it blocked him easily before firing several flame attacks at him. He managed to dodge the dragon's breath attacks, but got swept off his feet by the monster's tail, and Rin tried to help him out with a spell before the second dragon head fired a warning shot at her, which she translated as it telling her to stay out of the fight. Tai Chi tried to regroup as he wondered why the dragon was even there, but then Anna came by and tried to help him out, so he yelled at her in a way that weirdly made her regain consciousness. She wondered what she was doing in the area, but the dragon didn't give them any time to catch up as it fired another massive breath attack in their direction. Anna pushed Tai Chi out of the way, taking the full grunt of the attack, and Tai Chi tried to help her, but it was all too late. In her final moments, Anna thanked Tai Chi for being the first person to treat her as a woman, and she was about to confess her feelings before noticing Rin standing in the corner, which made her realize that her feelings were one-sided. With her last breath, she asked him to be her friend, and Tai Chi was absolutely devastated by her death, as he remembered how he promised to take care of her during their encounter with the goblins. He demanded that Ariel hands him her powers in a loud way, causing him to appear in a spirit dimension where he saw Ariel in full form for the first time. He yelled at her, so she apologized as she explained that she couldn't do anything because she needed him to command her based on the laws of their world. He asked about their previous encounter, so she explained that it was an exception because his life was in danger before apologizing again. Tai Chi started blaming himself for not having the resolve to summon her powers to save Anna, and he finally asked Ariel to give him her powers. She agreed and told him to call her Ari from that point on. Tai Chi came back to the real world, now fully harnessing Ari's power, as he told Rin that he'd now become a summoner. As he marched towards the dragon, he told Ari that they'd settle the fight in one blow, and when they got to the dragon, he asked why it intervened in their goal. The dragon asked Tai Chi to show it his power, so Tai Chi agreed. The two heads of the dragon fired massive flame attacks at him, which he destroyed with wind magic and took out the twin-headed dragon. The dragon commended him for his strength after being defeated and said that he intervened because of the request of a certain guy who asked them to fight him. The dragon said the person who hired his services would continue guiding Tai Chi and revealed that he granted the person his power because he agreed with his beliefs. The dragon advised Tai Chi to grow stronger so he could protect those dear to him as he walked away. Elsewhere, the mastermind told his master about everything that happened on the battlefield, and she decided to kickstart the next stage of their plan, which involved a national crisis. Several days after that battle, Tai Chi was with the girls, and he showcased his summoning ability by making Ari appear, so Lemia expressed how impressed she was by his growth. They noticed a carriage moving by the area, and after noticing the crest on it, Lemia informed them that it was a messenger from the royal family. A girl named Alcina introduced herself to the gang as a messenger of the king who was named Gilmer and asked them to accompany her to the royal capital Wenifix to lend their strength. Inside the carriage, Rin asked Alcina what was going on in their country, so she explained that for the past 30 years, the Illistane Magic Kingdom had been governed by a balance between factions supporting the king and his younger brother. While Gilmer obtained power through diplomacy and proactively reaching out to other nations, the younger brother, who was named Dordesheim, continued to oppose him at every turn. Tai Chi realized that it was basically a king aiming for internationalization against his conservative younger brother, and Alcina went on with her explanation by revealing that His Majesty had planned to dispatch magicians as part of his foreign policy, but the younger brother opposed based on the belief that letting the kingdom's magicians pass their borders would awaken their nation's dominance there. She finally revealed that the rebellion had begun, which meant that a war could break out at any moment, which puts them in a very precarious state, and Tai Chi realized that they were being summoned to stop the war. When they reached Wenifix, they noticed that it was like a ghost town because everyone was locking themselves indoors, and Alcina asked Lemia what was bugging her mind. Lemia asked if the king specifically mentioned Tai Chi and Rin, so Alcina revealed that the king said he wanted the two of them there no matter what. Right when they were about to continue their trip, the isekai duo felt their spidey senses tingling, which allowed Tai Chi to save Alcina from an unknown archer's assassination attempt. They arrived at the royal palace where they noticed that everyone around was staring at them like they were some rare Pokémon, and Alcina introduced some important figures in the room, including the head royal magician named Bella, the supreme commander of the royal army named Simela, and the princess of the kingdom named Charlotte. When King Gilmer showed up, he commended them for their efforts during the battle at Aspire. But Lemia wasn't ready to have any small talk, so she told him to get straight to the point. The people around were about to burn her at the stake like it was 1960 because of her disrespect towards the king, but Gilmer dismissed them and cheerfully told Lemia that she hadn't changed. She brought up the issue that was brewing between him and Dordesheim and offered to help in the condition that they'd head back to Aspire if he doesn't accept them. Gilmer agreed to her demands, but then she went in a more serious tone as she asked if he was the one responsible for Taichi and Rin's summoning. She guessed that he desperately needed the might of people with overwhelmingly powerful magic so he could quell the rebellion. Gilmer confirmed her suspicions to be true and apologized to the isekai duo for summoning them, but Taichi angrily retorted by bringing up how their lives were taken away from them only to be put in multiple near-death scenarios. Lemia said they were forced to become adventurers in order to survive and now had to fight for the sake of the country, so the king agreed to take full responsibility for anything that happened to them. A while later, Rin and Taichi were talking about how great it was that they'd figured out who summoned them when Elsina came by with Princess Charlotte. Charlotte apologized and confessed that she was the one who summoned them. She explained that she's a magician capable of manipulating space-time and apologized for dumping them in a field full of monsters. Elsina tried to calm her down by reminding her that she was only following orders from Gilmer, which she herself didn't fully want to do. Charlotte argued that she felt the same desire as Gilmer to protect the country and its people, and revealed that she specifically designed the magic spell so that it would select people that met her requirements. She also revealed that she initially planned to summon only Taichi, but because of the interference by the Duke's assassins, the spell went berserk and ended up dragging both of them to the New World. Taichi asked how they could go back, so she revealed that summoning magic could only be conducted once in a lifetime and burst into tears as she apologized for what she'd done to them. She promised that she'd find a way to send them back to their world when the war ends, even if it costs her own soul. So Rin and Taichi calmed her down by telling her about all the amazing experiences they'd had since getting into the New World and saying they needed to focus on stopping the war so the people could live in peace. Lemia crashed their little heart-to-heart by summoning Taichi to the outside of the castle, where he was put in a match against General Sumela. Sumela said she wanted to test him directly to see how strong he is, so she charged at him, and he managed to block her attack with his sword. She tried more times to slice his head open, but Taichi held his own against her, and Lemia explained to the girls that she was the one who proposed this duel as a way of earning the trust of the people at the capital. Sumela fired a shockwave at him, which he managed to block before attempting to summon Eri. He stopped halfway after realizing that using Eri to face her could lead to her death, so he decided to use his body enhancement instead. Their swords broke when they clashed again, so they started throwing hands and everyone watched in shock as Taichi took the general down with a wrestling move which made her yield. Sumela complimented his battle skill and pounced on him before asking to be his permanent baby maker. She started glazing him and saying all sorts of corny stuff to get him to fold, but Taichi yelled in terror instead. That evening, Taichi summoned Eri while resting on the roof and told her about how he was scared that his power could unalive people if he went full force. He brought up how he's only fought monsters so far, implying that he was worried because he'd have to fight against normal soldiers during the war, and also shared that he didn't want Rin to hurt anyone as well. Afterwards, he went into Rin's room where he accidentally saw her with barely any armor on, causing both of them to freak out. Charlotte was saying some prayers at the temple when the mastermind, who was named Ladra, showed up and advised her to get some rest. The next day, Taichi met up with Rin in the yard and informed her of a meeting which they needed to attend, but she was too busy tending to the garden which the royal family couldn't care for because of all the war drama going on. Meanwhile, Duke Dordesheim was having a meeting with his faction based on their plans to attack the royal capital soon, and two of the commanders named Marchese and Nilgen started arguing over who had a longer sword. Marchese suggested that it would be safer to assess the abilities of Taichi and Rin before jumping into battle and asked the Duke for his thoughts. The Duke asked Nilgen to move forward with his plan of overwhelming the royal capital as soon as possible, which made Marchese angry. Dordesheim brought up the isekai duo and said he hoped they wouldn't prove to be a threat against his army. It didn't take long before Gilmer was notified about some rebel troops that were marching on the capital, and when he asked Sumela how many they were, she estimated that they were about 1,000 in number. She however said that their army had about 3,000 knights ready for battle and another 1,000 standing by, so he asked Bella how many magicians they had. Bella said there were 300 magicians ready for battle at the moment, with another 500 in reserve, so he ordered both ladies to deploy their armies. Charlotte asked about Rin and Taichi, so Sumela confirmed that they were included in their ranks. Sumela told the team that an army of 1,000 led by Milgen would match on their land the next day, and Lemia thought that it might be a diversion or a multi-pronged attack since their forces were limited. Sumela said she'd sent scouts to check for those instances, but they couldn't find any other army on standby, so she concluded that their limited forces were due to the disagreements within the Dordesheim faction. Lemia suggested they increase the number of magicians they were sending just in case of any shenanigans, and Bella agreed, so Sumela spelled out the rest of the plan for them. The Isekai duo had zero knowledge about war, so they were completely lost during the strategy meeting, so Miura told them they'd be fine if they just followed Lemia's instructions like they usually did. Taichi expressed his concern about not wanting to unalive humans during the war the way he did for monsters, so Lemia told him that it was naive to believe a war could be successful without having any casualties. Sumela advised him to fight the way he did during their sparring match, and told him they'd have a big wedding after the war, which made him freak out. Later that evening, he met up with Rin in her room to pay his respects, but she stopped him from leaving by asking him to stay with her through the night. They went into her bedroom, where Rin said she wasn't okay with the fact that people had to die during the war. Taichi told her that she didn't have to join the fight the next day, and reminded her of Charlotte's words about her being summoned by accident, implying that it was all his fault that she got dragged into this mess. Rin said it wasn't his fault, but rather her own for leaping into the magic circle on her own, and claimed that she'd go to war the next day because she wanted to fight alongside him. Taichi assured her that he'd protect her, and they rested together for a while until Taichi felt something weird in the area and left. Meanwhile, Miura brought up the fact that Rin was scared of joining the war, and Lemia said there didn't need to be reckless slaughter, adding that Shit was confident in the ability of the Isekai duo to hold back. Lemia said she felt that Rin would lose her virginity that night because Taichi had gone into her room to check on her, and Mora said she wanted to go get some of that hot sauce as well before Lemia felt something weird in the air. This weird alarm which went off in her head was due to the fact that there was an assassin in the area who was sent by Marchis to unalive the Isekai duo so that Nilgen wouldn't take all the glory. The assassin went into Rin's room and stabbed some body-shaped figures on the bed, which turned out to be pillows, before Taichi and the girls showed up to confront him. They tried to advise him to surrender, but the assassin tried to stab Rin instead, which ended in failure as Taichi saved her from his blade. Taichi enhanced his body before going into a heated battle with the assassin, and it didn't take long before the assassin was eating some knuckle sandwiches while pinned to the floor. Lemia stopped Taichi from pummeling him to death and asked the assassin who sent him, but instead of replying, the assassin chose to unalive himself instead. The next day, the royal capital's troops were gathered, and Taichi was asked to perform his part of the plan. So he went on top of the wall and used Eri to fire a wind attack that blocked the path of the enemy soldiers by creating a huge hole in the ground. Sumela observed the enemy knights and realized that they were far too lightly equipped to be planning a raid in the royal capital. By Nilgen's command, the enemy soldiers fired flame magic attacks, which took out a bunch of the royal capital's knights on the front line, and Sumela was absolutely stunned by this because she knew it wouldn't normally be possible given their numbers. Taichi used a magical observation skill, which enabled him to see that the enemy soldiers were wearing some special rings which were the real source of the magic attacks they were firing at them. Lemia explained that the rings had something called a magic stone, which could allow even novices to use advanced magic spells, but also revealed that using magic in that way would be extremely draining for them, as it uses the wielder's life force as fuel. Bella said the soldiers could die without even knowing the cause, and Mura offered to save them, but the knights argued that leaving them to unalive themselves was more ideal. Sumela and Bella decided to help the enemy soldiers because they still considered them citizens of the nation. So Lemia came up with a plan which had Rin as the centerpiece. Nilgen's men started dropping like flies, but he noticed Rin prepping up a spell, so he ordered them to keep firing on their attacks. Eri put up a barrier that blocked their attacks, and the magicians of the Royal Capital Squad launched a water spell right above Nilgen's army, which Rin turned into rain using a magic blast. The rain caused a lightning attack that Pikachud the crap out of Nilgen and his men. Another of the Duke's commanders named Inimicus showed up and told Nilgen that Rin's rain tactic was an excellent way of stopping them with 0 casualties. Nilgen highlighted the fact that Inimicus was the one who supplied them with the magic rings, but Inimicus denied the accusations as he stabbed Nilgen to death. After the battle, Taichi and the gang celebrated, and Rin showed him that the flowers she tended to earlier had bloomed properly. Elsewhere, Kasim was drinking away his sorrows with Grammy, and he brought out a weird-looking device which he said would make Taichi experience true despair. The next day, Taichi and Rin were having a friendly conversation when they were joined by Lemia and Mura, who informed them that they were being called upon by the king. When they met up with Gilmer, he praised them for their efforts during the battle, and Charlotte chose to reward them by giving them some special weapons from the royal family's collection. Mura chose a short but pretty dagger, Rin chose a flashy staff, Lemia chose a special magic ring, and Taichi chose a katana which Charlotte said was forged in the Eastern Island nation. She added that none of their country's smiths could figure out what material was used in making it or how it was forged. A while later, they met up with Samela and the soldiers during practice, and Samela immediately challenged Taichi to a sparring match. Lemia activated the magic ring, which caused it to emit a huge wave of lightning energy, and Samela pounced on Taichi again, begging to have a taste of his long sword. Hours later, Taichi went into town to get some medicine for his chronic stupidity, and he noticed that everyone in town was staring at him for some reason. The people started swarming him and giving him the full Justin Bieber treatment because of the fact that he saved the town the previous day. Afterwards, he went to a secluded area where he met up with Kasim. He noticed that Kasim was missing his gooning hand, so he asked what happened to it. Kasim said he was the one who tore out the arm during his rage moment and swore that he'd end Taichi. Taichi pleaded with him that they should take the fight elsewhere since he didn't want any of the people around to get hurt, and went further to say that he didn't want to fight Kasim at all. Kasim said Taichi didn't have the right to refuse because he's already made movies to poison the town's water supply if he refuses to face him, and asked him to come with him. Meanwhile, Rin and Mura had a friendly sparring match where they were glazing each other while clashing swords intensely, and Samela, who watched from above, told Lemia that they'd received a report which says that Duke Dordesheim are nearly 60% done preparing for battle. She said they'd probably order her troops to move out that night, but wasn't sure how many of them would manage to return safely to the capital. Kasim took Taichi to an empty part of town where he told him that he was going to limit his power with a weird-looking magic tool that could make Tai Kai's magic power equal to his own. Eri warned Taichi that it was dangerous, and Kasim claimed that he'd have beaten Taichi if their powers were equalized right from the start. But Taichi argued that such a match would end in a draw. Kasim called him an idiot and said that in equalized battles that it was hard work that was the determining factor, implying that talented people like Taichi didn't put in any hard work during his journey. He claimed that he'd put in far more hard work than Taichi, and this ticked Taichi off to the point where he accepted to fight Kasim without using any cheat abilities. When they stood across from each other, Kasim activated the tool and Taichi immediately felt his powers being diminished. Taichi fired a tornado attack, which Kasim dodged easily before charging at Taichi with a sword. Taichi blocked his strike with his own sword and created some distance before blasting several more wind attacks at him. Kasim jumped over his attacks and fired a couple of long-range magic attacks of his own, which Taichi dodged before charging at him again. Taichi kicked his sword away, and the fight became a slugfest where both men beat each other up, and they decided to end things in the next exchange. Kasim charged up a massive magic attack, and Rin was desperately trying to figure out what to do until he remembered the words Rin told him when he was still trying to manifest his magic. Thanks to this, Taichi created a slash attack, using his katana that split the wind attack into two and slammed Kasim on the nearby wall. Kasim admitted that he was defeated, and Taichi tried to cheer him up by reminding him that he had a one-arm advantage. But Kasim said it didn't matter because battles require the combatants to work with the carers they've been dealt. Eri showed up and demanded that he return Tai Kai's power, so Kasim revealed that the only way to get it back was to destroy the magic item. Taichi asked why he was being very cooperative with them, and he replied that it would be pathetic to withhold information after losing a duel fair and square. Suddenly, the magic item manifested a powerful dark spirit which started attacking Taichi, and even Kasim was shocked to see this. Grammy pulled up in time to stop the dark spirit from unaliving Taichi, and Kasim told her to destroy the magic item, so she shattered it using her sword. This somehow made the dark spirit grow even more, so Taichi decided to blow it away using one of his cheat abilities. He pulled out his sword and asked Eri to compress the air around. When she compressed it, the air turned into lightning, which Taichi fired from his sword and split the monster into two. Afterwards, Taichi tried to offer Kasim a recovery potion, but Grammy stopped him by bringing up the fact that Kasim's pride was already in shambles given the fact that he lost to Taichi. He was convinced that the difference in their strength lay solely in Tai Kai's gifts, but now he's forced to accept the fact that Taichi put in some hard work as well. She went further to reveal that Kasim likes people who work hard, and when Grammy helped him away, he shared a cheerful smile as he bid Taichi farewell. Just then, the bells started rolling and a merchant in the area informed Taichi that the rebel army had declared war on the capital. Elsewhere, Ladra told his mistress about the way Taichi defeated the dark monster, and they decided to move forward with the next step of their plan. That evening, Taichi promised Rin that he'd protect her, and she swore to do the same, so they agreed that they'd do the best they could together and shook hands on it. Meanwhile, the troops were gathered outside the Duke's base and Marchis asked to be the one to handle Lemia and her disciples since he's already made plans for them. He swore that he wouldn't fumble like Nilgen, so Dordesheim agreed. Sometime later, Dordesheim and his army were gathered outside the capital, and he asked his right-hand man Inimicus if they stood a chance at victory. Inimicus replied that he believed they would because Marchis would surely take care of Lemia and the girls and revealed that he as well had a plan for Taichi. The Duke asked if he'd be seen in the history books as the man who drew a sword against his brother or the man who saved the Elistane kingdom, and Inimicus replied that he'd be seen as both, so he officially commanded his soldiers to begin their march. On the other end of the spectrum, Gilmer gave his own version of Erwin's death march speech and motivated his soldiers to fight for the kingdom with their full heart before Samela ordered them to advance. The war went into full swing and the girls easily took down some enemy soldiers using their magic, including Lemia, who aura farmed while taking out a group of soldiers. It was time for Taichi to make his move, so he used his magic vision ability to spot the enemy camp and enhanced his body so much that it only took him a single leap to get there before using wind magic to take out a bunch of enemy soldiers. At the same time, Ladra reported to his mistress that everything was going according to plan, and she revealed that she'd already set up a roadblock for Taichi which was bound to be a problem for him. Everything was going well for Rin on the battlefield until a barbaric woman named Suzora showed up and revealed that her employer tasked her with terminating before introducing herself as a rank warrior. Rin immediately figured out that this was another battle-obsessed lunatic like Grammy, and when she introduced herself as a C-rank adventurer, Suzora said it didn't feel right given her skills before charging at her. Mura was approached by Marchis who attempted to riz her up, but she pointed her sword at him and swore that she'd protect what she held dear before commencing her attack on him. Lemia was making easy work of some enemy soldiers on the battlefield, but her attempt to put them down using wind magic was thwarted by an ice user who dispelled her attack. The man responsible for the dispelling walked towards her and explained that jamming magic was an advanced spell he only used when facing opponents that were his level. He introduced himself as Mistfollows and swore to take Lemia's life, so she freed the enemy soldiers she was toying with and squared off against this mysterious wizard. At the enemy camp, Inimicus was telling Dordesheim about their plans to bring in some reinforcements when Taichi made a surprise entrance. He requested a conversation with Dordesheim, so the Duke ordered every knight in the room apart from Inimicus to leave. Taichi said he came to offer a chance at peace on behalf of the royal army and brought up the fact that both Dordesheim and Gilmer share the same desire to bring happiness to the people. Taichi said it was foolish that the Duke was inciting bloodshed despite having that dream because it was grinding away the country's might, and asked him to withdraw his troops while claiming that Gilmer has promised leniency towards him and his supporters. He brought up Lemia's statement about him having the power to destroy nations and said it would have been easier to just capture the Duke with his powers before once again asking Dordesheim to surrender. Inimicus secretly let out a dark aura that went into the bodies of some of the fallen enemy knights. Meanwhile, Lemia and Mistfollows were having a heated magic battle, and she countered his ice attack with a shield of flame. When he fired a wind attack, she blocked using a magic shield before using a wind attack of her own to slash him. She told him the spell she just used to clap him was something she literally just created and said that she wouldn't show him any mercy because he was a fellow magic user. When she confirmed that he didn't have any last words, he used a ginormous flame ball attack to barbecue him. Marchis noticed that Mistfollows had been unalived, so he started bad-mouthing him, and this ticked off Mura so much that she used a flame technique on her sword and challenged him to an all-out battle. Marchis agreed, so she charged at him and clashed swords intensely with him until he knocked her sword away. Mura suddenly appeared behind him and stabbed him in the neck to end the battle. Dordesheim told Taichi that he was refusing to surrender and asked Taichi why he didn't choose to become king despite having the power to topple nations. Taichi said it was because there would be too many responsibilities for him if he was a king, so Dordesheim asked why he didn't just rule as he pleased by becoming a dictator. Taichi replied that he didn't want to be hated by everyone, and this made the Duke laugh before telling him that there are times when people in power had to sacrifice something in order to achieve their goals. Dordesheim said he wasn't backing down because he felt it was his responsibility to care for the nation of Elistane, and Eri pointed out the mysterious dark aura which Inimicus was emitting, which made fallen knights begin to reawaken in dark forms. At the same time, Suzora fired a tricky flame attack on Rin, which she managed to dodge before firing some ice spells. Suzora shattered her ice attacks, so Rin turned a massive ball of fire into a rain of flames that severely injured Suzora. She asked Suzora to surrender, and she refused, saying they had to continue their fun battle. But unfortunately, they were interrupted when Inimicus' dark zombies showed up. Dordesheim asked Inimicus what he was plotting, so Inimicus revealed that he'd prepared a dark spell which affected the entire battlefield ahead of time, and confessed that he'd been using the Duke all along to forward his own agendas. He went further to say that his only master was a woman who was the supreme being that watches over the entire world, and Taichi realized that the person he was referring to was the same person the dragon told him about. Eri told him that the energy she was feeling from Inimicus was from a huge war, which took place 200 years ago, and Inimicus revealed that his mission was to start a war and make Taichi participate in it. He couldn't care less about the country's safety and sent his berserkers to devour everyone in the country, and Simelin noticed that the creatures didn't die when she struck them. It didn't take long before the entire battlefield became a scene from The Walking Dead as everyone engaged in combat against these dark zombies, while Inimicus continued to exalt his supreme being. There was once an event known as the Bloody Rhapsody, where the Gargan Empire and the Holy Scatolith Empire went to war 200 years ago. They thought the battle would end quickly, but suddenly the soldiers became berserk warriors and started attacking everyone in sight. It was known as the worst battle in history because by the time it was over, there were over 700,000 dead people from both sides. Those who caused the soldiers to lose control were still unknown, but it was believed that it was the work of a mind control spell. Mura brought up the fact that mind control wasn't a magical element, so Lemia guessed that this event was caused by black magic being wielded by a dark being. She added that they had to crush the person behind the spell in order to stop it, unless those men would continue to feel no emotion or pain as they slaughter everyone in sight. It didn't take long before a large horde of berserk knights surrounded Wenifix, and the dark mage told Laudra that she was looking forward to seeing the world burn. Rin and Suzora were fighting off some of the dark zombies when Rin offered to hire Suzora's services for a job, which she said was fighting alongside her until the war was over, and Suzora agreed to this proposal. Taichi took out some of the dark zombies using wind magic, but more of them gathered around the battlefield, and Dordesheim told him that Inimicus was able to use that dark power because he was lent some power from his mistress. He brought up the fact that the dark magic user started this war in order to drive Taichi into a corner, and revealed that Gilmer had ordered his knights to stop these berserk soldiers even if it costs their full army or every citizen in Elistane. The Duke realized that he'd destroyed the nation in order to protect it, and said that he'd go down in history as the villain, so Taichi said they'd stop the war together. Taichi activated his summoner powers while everyone else fought desperately, and quoted Dordesheim as he tried to sacrifice himself to end the war. Eri stopped him from doing so by stopping time, and Taichi tried to get her out of the way, but she refused, saying this whole thing was her fault. Taichi asked why she was apologizing, so she revealed that her real form contained power that was so dangerous that she feared it could destroy him. He tried to understand what she was saying, but she said goodbye to him as she vanished into a glowing aura. When time started moving again, Rin came by, and Taichi noticed that her leg was injured, so he apologized for taking too long and swore that he'd end the battle. He told her that it was time to say goodbye to being human, and proceeded to summon the true form of Eri, which was an elemental named Sylphid. This made the dark aura that was hovering over the city turn golden and begin to fade away, causing the berserk knights to regain their consciousness. Eri appeared in her true form and told Taichi to call her Sylphie from then on, and Suzira lost it when she realized that Sylphie was the queen of spirits. Inimicus absorbed even more dark energy, which transformed him into a low-budget Dracula, and Taichi faced off against him while glowing with Sylphie's aura. He asked Inimicus who the Dark Woman was and what their goals were, but Inimicus chose to answer with his fists. Taichi blocked his attack and pushed him back before he revealed that the reason Taichi was summoned to that world was because he was chosen by the Dark Lady. He said that everything that has happened has been orchestrated by her, and claimed that a great battle would eventually turn the world inside out, which would allow her to emerge as their savior. He said Taichi only existed because he was meant to be the ultimate weapon of their world, which was named Altia. Taichi once again asked who the woman was, but he replied that it wasn't yet time for Taichi to learn her name. This ticked Taichi off so much that he started throwing punches at him while preaching about how he wanted to protect everyone, and Inimicus blocked until Taichi landed a solid blow to the gut that planted him on the ground. Despite being cooked, Inimicus felt grateful about the fact that he was fulfilling his duty and asked Taichi to land the finishing blow on him. When Taichi hesitated, Inimicus claimed that his naive no-one-dies mentality was his weakness, but Taichi amplified his aura as he created a huge tornado. Inimicus felt grateful for the fact that he's fulfilled his purpose for the Dark Lady, named Shade, and Taichi obliterated him with a brutal lightning strike. Taichi woke up several days later and had a cheerful discussion with all the ladies before his stomach growled like a sad puppy again. Eventually, Wenifix returned to normal and Taikai's team was rewarded for their efforts by being granted the role of the Royal Army's special forces to be summoned only when the kingdom was in danger. Dordesheim ended up getting beheaded for his crimes against the nation. Lemia met up with Taichi, who was stressing out about what happened during the war, and advised him to be true to himself so he could move forward as a human, no matter what level of power he wielded. Afterwards, he and the girls said their goodbyes to Charlotte, who promised once more to find a way to return them, the isekai duo, to their world, and made their way back to Aspire. Do you think Rin and Taichi are ever going to defeat Lady Shade and return to the real world? Let us know in the comments. That's all for today's video. If you like anime recaps like this, check out this video here.